Hi everyone, my name is Shauna. In case you don't know, welcome back to another video. Today I will be doing my September reading wrap-up. September was not a good month for me. There's been like family health issues. My dog is like really not doing well, and I know I've been giving updates on my dog, so like I'll keep doing that. She currently is really not wanting to eat food, and the vet prescribed us this thing called Entice, which is like this magic item for some dogs. Like this medicine will help some dogs get their appetite fully back. It's not working with my dog, and she's really thin, and it's really hard because she still has her same personality, so she's still very happy. She still is begging us to go on walks, even though every once in a while we're like, you haven't eaten at all today, so we're not going to take you on a walk. And it's been just really hard to watch, and it's been a lot of like trying to just get her to eat anything. She gets IVs in her back every other day that have the vitamins that she needs, so that like if she ends up eating just like something that gets her protein but isn't vitamin dense, then those IVs will get her the vitamins that she needs. It's just been really hard with that. I've been spending a lot of time just dedicated to helping her. I mean, right before filming this video I was planning on putting on makeup, but I was like, you know what, I need to just like spend as much time as possible taking care of my dog today. Her name's Tula, if you want to keep her in your prayers. She has kidney failure, so we know that her time is limited, which is really, really hard, but we also know that she can get stable and live for a little bit longer if she will just eat food and let her body stabilize with the correct food. It's been really hard. There's been like family health issues. I've had like issues with some of my physical insecurities getting worse this month. Like it has not been a good month for me. But anyways, today I want to talk about the books that I read in September. Hopefully talking about the books that I read will be like less depressing than talking about my life. I read 7 books this month, which isn't as much as I normally read, but I reread a book this month that is freakishly long, so that's why I didn't read as many books this month. And also sometimes these like things that are going on in my life just really take up a lot of like mental space where I can't read. So like on really hard days with my dog, I find it really hard to like read anything at all because I'm so sad and depressed about that. Okay, let me just get on to the books I read and the rankings. The first book that I read this month was a reread. This is the biggest one that I read this month, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Of course, covering the author's name. I also recently found someone on TikTok who is rebinding the Harry Potter series, like with covers that they designed that doesn't have the author's name on it. So I really want to like save up and buy those because that would be really awesome to have in my collection. In case you haven't been following along, I have been tabbing for different characters, and finally there is a book with all 5 of the characters I've been tabbing that are like in here. Okay, so Percy's orange, so he's the one that has the most. Lavender is purple, she's the one with the second most amount, or maybe Lee is second most, and then Susan Bonds is in here, and then Winky, the house elf, is in here, although Winky's very, very briefly mentioned in here. Winky's like big stories, Goblet of Fire. I of course love this one. I gave it 5 stars. This was my second time reading it all the way through, although I have read like bits and pieces in the past as well, just like an audiobook format. This book hit really hard for me at the end though, because Harry goes through like all the different stages of grief, and like thinking about my dog and what she's going through made me like really connect to Harry, and that made me really sad because I'm like, great, I'm going to be going through all of that at some point in the next year or 2. So I was really sad, but I love Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. This used to be my favorite one, but I think it's like fallen a little farther now because it has a couple problematic elements, but I still do really enjoy Order of the Phoenix, so that's why I gave it 5 stars. Next book that I read was an ebook, and that was The Apocalypse 7 by Jean Ducette. I'm not sure how to say their last name. Apocalypse 7 was very disappointing. I read this one through NetGalley. I got this one a while ago, and okay, so I love apocalypse stories. In this one, it sounded like there was freak weather. It sounded like there wasn't very many people left. It sounded like a really interesting story, but I was just like really bored out of my mind reading it. And also I didn't really like any of the characters. There's only one character that I really liked, Win, but her character was the character that got like the least amount of time on the page. I didn't like how the men would like discuss women in their brains, because you get different points of views, getting to see what all these characters are thinking. The only thing I really liked was the setting. and I just found this book to be very disappointing. And I think one of the things that was disappointing to me about this book too is that with most apocalypse stories, you sort of know why an apocalypse is happening. You know that it's aliens, you know that it's zombies, you know that it's a plague, you know that it's like a weather event. Like, you know these things early on in the story. This one didn't tell you what it was until the last 10%, and by the time that 10% got there, I like didn't care, and I felt like the big reveal was like very disappointing. Also, one thing to note too is that there's a character that is like a very extreme religious conservative, and if he were like real, he would be like a massive Trump supporter. So just like keep that in mind if you want to read this book. Like, you will have to deal with lots of points of views from this like very extremely religious conservative character, which I know it isn't an issue for all people, okay? Some people really like that type of character, some people really like that type of person. I'm just giving you a heads up because I know that that will really turn some people off from this book. So I think people should get like a heads up about that. I ended up giving this book 1 star. It just was not my type of book. I didn't like it, and I wouldn't recommend it unless you like other books by this author, because most of the reviews that I saw where people liked this book, I think they liked other books by this author. I think that's why they liked it. But yeah, I found this one to be very disappointing. And then I read a book that is a sequel to a sci-fi book that I read like years and years ago. I read Cinder years ago by Marissa Meyer, and so I read Scarlet by Marissa Meyer this month. Oh, my brain's all over the place. Oh, also, I was doing another like challenge thing this month, so I'll link the like group down in the description below. Book Nerds on Goodreads, I was doing their cozy reading challenge, which was their challenge for September. So all of these books that I read fit different fall themed prompts for this like challenge readathon. So Scarlet fit the prompt, I believe, of a red-haired character. Okay, I have a love-hate relationship with this series. Like, there are things that I like about this story, but there are things that I really hate about it. Generally though, I would say that this series is very like overrated in my opinion. Like, I feel very underwhelmed reading it. Scarlet has basically the same exact personality as Cinder, they just have different life circumstances and they have different like physical appearances. That's really the only difference between Scarlet and Cinder. They have the same personality. Wolf is the like love interest in here, and I liked him in the last 50%, but in the first 50% his personality was very inconsistent. I really liked where the story went in the like last half of the book. I liked the setting and stuff, but it was like 50% of the way through to get to something that I found even slightly interesting. I did think it was slightly better than Cinder because of that last 50%. Oh, I should probably tell you what Scarlet's about. You should read Cinder before you read Scarlet, but like I feel like you don't have to understand Cinder that well to understand Scarlet. Okay, so Scarlet is the second book in the Lunar Chronicles, which is this sci-fi series that is like a retelling of different fairy tales. So this is a retelling of Red Riding Hood. There is romance in each of the stories. Scarlet follows this girl named Scarlet, and her grandma is missing, and she is determined to find her grandma when she meets this guy named Wolf. And Wolf decides to help Scarlet find her grandma. But things don't go as easily as it seems. It's interesting in parts. I have a love-hate relationship with this book and this entire series, so I gave this one 3 stars because I feel like that last 50% was pretty good. The first 50% was pretty meh. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't spectacular. I'm really worried about reading Cress because I do own the audiobook for Cress, and I'm thinking about just quitting the series after Cress. I'm sorry if you hear my dog barking, by the way. My neighbors, they haven't officially moved in yet, but they have been doing work on the house that they bought since July, and they're not done yet, and it's October and they haven't moved in yet. So like there's people currently working right there. My dog is very upset that there's people outside that she can't go and say hi to, so that's why she's barking. Anyways, I was saying that I'm like worried to read Cress, and I'm thinking about like stopping the series after Cress, and the reason why I'm worried to read Cress is because I cannot stand when books, especially young adult books, have a relationship between a minor and an adult. And basically Cress's love interest is introduced in here, and Cress's love interest is, I believe his name's Thorn. Yeah, Thorn. And Thorn is 20, and I already looked up the age of Cress because I was like, this is a young adult series, why is there a 20-year-old love interest? Cress is 16, that's a minor with an adult. So I'm very much thinking that I'm not gonna like Cress very much because of that. I'm desperately hoping that like young adult authors get their crap together and decide to stop having relationships between minors and adults, but I don't know if that'll ever happen. And also it's different than some books where people are like, oh, you're making a big deal of nothing, when it's like a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old, and this time it's like a 16-year-old, so basically like a sophomore in high school with a 20-year-old, so like a sophomore in college if you were to put them in like school grades, okay? A high school lower classman with a college student. You know, I'm a little worried about reading Crest because of that, but everyone always says that the series is so good, but like I still don't understand the hype for the series. Anyways, the next book that I read is a book that I actually really enjoyed, and that is The Devil Wears Tartan. Tartan? I don't know if I've ever said that word out loud before. Tartan? Tartan? T-A-R-T-A-N, like Scottish, like plaid? Is that what it is? Scottish plaid? So this one is by Katia Rose, and I read a book called Catch and Cradle by Katia Rose earlier this year, and I really enjoyed Catch and Cradle, so I decided to like download all of Katia Rose's books that I can find off of Kindle Unlimited, because I have Kindle Unlimited. I've been trying to read like one book from Kindle Unlimited, if not more, each month, so like actually use my subscription. I've missed a few months, but I'm slowly getting better at using my subscription. The Devil Wears Tartan. That word's bugging me because I don't know how to say it. So this book follows two different characters, Moira and Kenzie, and these two characters have been rivals in the Highland dancing community in Canada for like their entire career of doing Highland dancing. So they've sort of taken a step back because they're in college and they are teachers now for Highland dancing. But they find out that there's a scholarship for Highland dancing for anyone who is going to be basically going into college in the next year, or for anyone who's already in college and needs the scholarship. So both of the girls decide to join, but as they are doing all the activities to earn this scholarship, they start to feel some chemistry there that they have been ignoring for their entire history of this rivalry that they've had together. So it gets very steamy, but it is really, really good. My only issue with this book is the third act conflict, which is where a lot of my issues with romance books happen. I just felt like there were some things said that like you can't easily come back from that, but they did easily come back with that because it's a romance, and like 98% of romances have happy ever afters, but like it just felt like some of those things that were said, like you need to unpack that in therapy, you know? But I did really enjoy this one, and I absolutely loved it up until that conflict towards the end. So I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. It is definitely one that I'd recommend for people, but I think Catch and Cradle is a little better. But I still think everyone should read The Devil Wears Tartan. And then I read 3 more books. One is like a novel and 2 are graphic novels. So the next one that I read is A Letter to 3 Witches by Elizabeth Bass. I am really not doing good at pronouncing words today. A Letter to 3 Witches is an adult book that I think is categorized as rom-com, although I'd categorize it more as chick lit or like woman's fiction because there's barely any romance in here. So there is these 3 cousins who are witches, but they're part of this witching family who aren't allowed to practice their witchcraft anymore because of an incident that happened like way in the past with one of their ancestors. And there's this girl who is a distant relation to these cousins, and this girl gets adopted into the main gal Gwen's family. But this gal Tanith, the girl who got adopted in, she really likes to stir up drama and create conflict. So she sends a letter to the 3 cousins saying, at the end of this week, I'm going to leave with one of your lovers, one of your partners. And it sort of sets the 3 cousins on a little bit of a disaster journey. They start making accidents. Their magical powers start surfacing a little bit. It sounds really interesting. I won it in a Goodreads giveaway. I thought I would love it, but I was so bored with this book. Like, I literally finished this book and was so bored that I just took a nap. It was 11 at night and I took a nap until midnight because this book just made me so tired because it was so boring. And also there's like non-stop cheating in here, which I hate cheating, especially when it happens for like no reason. So yeah, I didn't really like this book. I didn't think that this book really fit a rom-com like it's described as. I mean, it's not described like that on the back of the book, but like if you look up this book online, it's often described as a rom-com, especially like on the Goodreads synopsis, and I'm like, no, that is very much not what this book is. I think this book will find an audience. I was looking at the reviews and quite a few people liked it. I just think that this book really was not for me, unfortunately. So I gave this one 1 star. I was considering giving it 2 stars, and then like the cheating got even worse towards the end, and I was like, no, I can't bring myself to give this book 2 stars, getting 1 star for me. And now I'm torn about whether like I want to get rid of this book or not. I mean, if I get rid of a book, I give it to someone else who can read it, because like all the books that I want in giveaways are so special to me, but at the same time, like, I really don't like this book and I don't want it on my shelf, so I need to figure out what I'm gonna do with this book. I need to decide whether I'm gonna keep it or not, but like, yeah, this book was just so disappointing. The next book that I read is Vampire Knight Volume 2. This is by Matsuri Hino? I might have said their name wrong as well. I'm very bad at pronouncing names. Vampire Knight is this series that is known for a particular event that happens towards the end of the series. I was like gonna just tell you what it was, but I asked on Goodreads and I was like, hey, does everyone know what the particular uncomfortable thing is in here? And people were like, no, don't tell us, don't spoil it. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not gonna be like talking about that particular thing unless I use a spoiler alert, which I'm not going to do for this video because the particular thing hasn't happened in the series yet. I have a love-hate relationship with this series because of that particular thing that happens. I'm finding that I actually like the anime a little better than the manga. The reasoning for that is because with the manga, like, I just get all of the different vampires confused, but like in the anime I didn't get them confused at all, and I was able to like remember their names, keep them all apart. I'm trying to find like a good like image of what I'm talking about. I can't find one, but basically there's like a ton of vampires in here because there's like a day class and a night class at this school, and like there are these two people who are sort of there to stop the day class and the night class from interacting, because obviously the night class is vampires, the day class is humans. But there's just so many vampires, and there's 2 vampires in particular where their character design is very similar, and in the anime I could keep them apart because they had different voices and there was color to like help distinguish them, but in this one all the vampires look literally the same and I can't keep them apart, and they have no like distinguished voices, so it's much easier to keep the vampires apart in the anime. I would actually say I recommend watching the anime instead of reading the manga if you're interested in the series. However, if you only like manga and you don't like anime, then feel free to read the manga. I gave this one 3 stars just because I was so confused with the vampires. It is still really enjoyable, and the main reason why I love this series so much and why this series will always like hold a special place in my heart is because of Zero. That is Zero right there. Zero is such an interesting character to read about, especially in the context of a vampire story. I think that the story is good. I think a lot of people like it. I think that it does have flaws. I think that overall I love this series, but I think that this volume in particular was just a 3-star for me. I'm hoping that as I get farther along the series, I'll be able to like figure out the little differences between each vampire so that I can keep them apart, but right now it's really confusing. It's also been years since I watched the anime, so like maybe if I watch the anime, like rewatch it and then continue with the series, maybe like I'll be able to keep the vampires more apart, but I don't know. I'm not really good at rewatching stuff, but yeah, it's a good series, but I have issues with it, as you can tell. And the final book that I read this month is the shortest one that I read this month, and this was a Gretskill Metal to the Max. So this one has multiple authors because there is 3 like short story comics in here, so like it's split up into 3 different stories. I'm gonna give you like my star rating of each individual story, and I'm gonna talk about like the author and illustrators. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense because I feel like it's hard to talk about a collection like as a whole. I need to like separate the different stories. The first one in here is Down with the Sickness, which is written by Daniel Barnes and it's illustrated by DJ Kirkland. So Down with the Sickness is my favorite one in this collection, and it is possibly my favorite Gretskill comic out of all the different ones that I've read. Down with the Sickness is sort of like a little bit of a play on like, I mean specifically COVID-19, but it's just a play on like viruses and how quickly they spread, and it makes it into like a sort of a little game. It's obviously dramatized, but I felt like there was a good message there about like not going and seeing other people when you're sick, which is an important thing to learn during the time of COVID. And I was sort of having like nostalgia when I was reading it because it was reminding me of like I would play games called Infection when I was in like cross country, or like during different like summer camps we'd play different like zombie games. It was sort of giving me like those vibes, and it was really fun to read that one. And then the next one is Mall Madness. Oh, and I gave Down with the Sickness 5 stars. And to decide on my rating for like this collection as a whole, I decided to average out my rating for like all of them and then round up or down based on the points that I gave it. You'll see what I mean towards the end. So the next one up was Mall Madness, which this is the little cover for Mall Madness. Mall Madness was written and illustrated by Jarrett Williams. I liked Mall Madness, but I didn't like it as much as Down with the Sickness. Mall Madness is about Sonoda. I hope I said her name right, and she is one of Retsko's co-workers, and she basically pulls Retsko along to different stores, like very posh stores, like expensive stores. She's very much like an entitled rich person who wants to be a social media influencer, and so it's sort of like playing on that and making fun of that a little bit, which I think is an interesting story. I just found Sonoda to be really annoying in this one, but I did still enjoy it, so I gave it 4 stars. And then the final one in here is The Visitor, which was written and illustrated by Brenda Hickey. So there you go, that's the cover for The Visitor. The Visitor plays on the idea of a Karen, which is something that's become very like mainstream, and I wouldn't say it's popular in terms of people like Karens, but it's popular in terms of like to make jokes about Karens and stuff. The issue that I had with this one though is that Karen, like they're making fun of her, and I get it, like she's being a little overbearing and annoying, but I was like, she's actually standing up for Retsko. She actually cares about Retsko and how Retsko is doing in the work office, because Retsko gets very used. If you've seen the anime, you would know that. And I was like, Karen, you're actually doing something good for Retsko and you're being treated like a joke. So I was getting a little frustrated with that, but it is funny, and I thought that the ending of The Visitor was very sweet, so I gave that one 4 stars. So the first one was 5 stars, then 4 stars, then 4 stars, so I averaged that all out and averaged to 4.3 stars. And if it was 0.5 or above, I'd round up, but since it's below 0.5, I rounded down to 4 stars. So this one got 4 stars overall. So yeah, those are all the books that I read. Sorry if I wasn't super positive in this video. It's been a rough month. I'm hoping that October will be a better month. I don't know though, like LeakyCon is happening this month. I'm going to Denver, which is gonna be super exciting. I haven't traveled outside of Oregon and Washington since COVID started, and I'm going to Denver, which is literally like in the middle of the country, which I thought that I went to Colorado before because I did this like big road trip through like the middle of the country, but apparently I've never been to Colorado before, so this will be my first time. Very much looking forward to it. It's probably still gonna be hard with my dog, but like I have hope that she will start eating for me. Please. I just spend so much time worrying about her, and I want her to be able to eat so that she can have the energy to go on walks and stuff. I'm sorry, my life is a mess right now, so my YouTube videos will be a mess for a little while. But I hope all of you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to me. If you haven't already, I upload videos twice a week, so my next video will be uploaded this Friday. I hope all of you stick around to watch that one. I hope all of you are having a great start to your October, and I will see all of you on Friday. Till next time, goodbye!